So just to let you all know, the most awesome hacker tool isn't strings, it's tracer T. I love the fact that you scheduled like a blue team right after a red team, because we all know red team is sexy and blue team is not. All right, so this is what he said. The ubiquitous about me, 7 years of IS investigations, stint as a consultant. I know a thing or two about logs because I worked in incident response for a long time, and most of you in here is also token Canadians, but you know, it's all good. Come on, don't go too fast. Ha, there we go. How about those SSL bleeds? Really? All right, fine. I make money by keeping my employers happy, and the community, because I'm a community development type person. Yes, I work for Elasticsearch, so Elasticsearch sponsored this place, and they pay me to come do talks. I'm not a salesperson, so don't expect me to actually try and sell you anything, because I don't like salespeople. The good thing about this is that this isn't a sales talk. It's actually, all of the stuff I'm going to talk about is free as in beer. So you have no excuses not to go back to your organizations and install logging software that actually works. Of course, I have to give you the shameless plug that, you know, if you buy a subscription, you know, you make me eat, which I like to eat. Really? Logs, they're just events. Events are just documents. Elasticsearch stores documents. We'll get into that. It's all good. The ELK stack. Who has heard about the ELK stack prior to today from the Etsy guys? Woo! Sweet. How many people use it? Fantastic. Working on it is okay. Who's in production? Couple of people. Nice. Who's helping me, who's helping me pay for my dinner? Yeah, that's what I thought. So 3 parts to the ELK stack. It's Logstash, Elasticsearch, and Kibana. Logstash is a way to take events, because I'm hesitant to say logs because it's not just about logs, it's about any kind of event you want, do something with it, and send it out to the other side. Elasticsearch is just a storage mechanism. It's based on the Apache Lucene. We employ a numerous Lucene core developers. So we support not only our stuff, but we also support the whole Lucene ecosystem. Kibana, it's the front end to visualize stuff that's in Elasticsearch, not just logs, but pretty much anything that's in there. We have also, of course, some tools for success. I'll let somebody else talk about that. Ubiquitous, hey, look, a whole bunch of people use our stuff. And Logstash. 3 stages: input, filters, output, also known as generate the events, modify them, ship them out. What does that mean? Typically, when you're doing the Logstash, you are going to have 3 parts to it. It can be in one device, or you can break this out into multiple devices. It's totally dependent on your setup. One of the best things that drew me to the Elasticsearch and Logstash ELK kind of build when I was in your shoes as being the guy who had to deal with the incidents was that you could pretty much build it any which way you want. If you want to have just something that listens to things and then pipes it into some sort of message queue, you can do that. If you want to run it as a single device because you're a small shop and you only really don't need a message queue, you can do that too. Everything's very, very configurable, very, very open. And of course, it's all Ruby. So you can even extend it if you really want to. We talk about inputs. Some really cool stuff. Twitter. If you're worried about brand type stuff, or you want to see if somebody's talking about your business or something like that, you can monitor Twitter. You can monitor IRC. You can monitor SNMP traps. Those are pretty easy. Something that, how many people have message or packet flows in your network? One person. Really? Packet flows are a wealth of information. Logstash can take packet flows natively. So you don't need any extra tools or anything like that. You just point the flows right at Logstash, and it just ends up in the rest of the system. IMAP is also really cool. So if you have If you have a mailing list or something like that, and you want to ingest all that information, you can parse it, you can add extra data, you can add metadata to it, so on and so forth. We talk about codecs. Codecs is just a way to manipulate data. So for example, let's say you have a TCP stream coming in and it's JSON based instead of just single lines. You can take that JSON and just pipe it through the rest of the infrastructure. You don't really need to do anything special with it. It just works. Like I said, net flows, message back, how fun, you name it. I was talking to some other people that are going to start working on doing encryption so that you can encrypt on the far end, have a codec for decrypt it, and it stays encrypted through the whole process. Filters is where the power comes from. When you have an event of some sort, you usually have some sort of data that you want to extend, some kind of metadata. Typical one being IP address. What can you get with an IP address? Well, you can do a reverse DNS. You can do a whois lookup. You can do GeoIP. You can do what else? You can look up reputationals, CIF data, you name it. You can add these metadata pieces of information as the event is going through. How many people do incident response? A couple of people. How many people do incident response and realize that something happened 3 months ago? How many people went ahead and tried to figure out where the IP address was resolving from 3 months ago? Wouldn't it be really cool to have that as metadata to the event as it goes through the pipeline? That way you don't have to go back, you can see it right there. Fantastic. Grokking we're going to get to. Anonymize is really cool if you're sharing that data with a third party, or if you're going to be doing other kind of things where you're going to be displaying it to certain people that may not need to see certain functions. Outputs, the common one being Elasticsearch. It's not necessarily where everybody wants to send things. You could do things like CSVs, you could do page, who knows what PagerDuty is? One, do you use PagerDuty? Oh, yeah. Fantastic. So PagerDuty is a way to send alerts to, yeah, everybody's going, oh no. I've been there. There's nothing like waking up at 3 in the morning to back-to-back pages. And I carried a pager. PagerDuty lets you just, get those escalations. It's kind of magical. It's kind of nice. Also things like HipChat or, or IRC or anything like that. So if you have these kind of things and you have like a team IRC or HipChat kind of infrastructure where you want to be able to get your team acknowledging alerts right away, just dump it straight into your team IRC channel or your team HipChat channel and away you go, right? Of course you can email, file it, so on and so forth. Windows is a special beast. Although this isn't technically part of the ELK stack, I'm actually a really, really big fan of the NXLog function. NXLog is an open source project with commercial ties, so on and so forth. What's really nice about it is that it will run as a very, very thin layer on top of your, on your Windows hosts. It uses PubSub to the window event log instead of having to sit here and query the logs every time. So instead of 5,000 messages go through and it's gone, well, instead of having that, it just sits there as PubSub and stays in memory. The other nice thing is that you can actually keep all the structured data. How many people know that the latest Microsoft Windows versions, actually all the event logs are structured data? They're all stored in XML. So instead of sending all this stuff with into a syslog, I use syslog because nobody actually ever uses syslog RFC, but wouldn't it be really cool instead of having this one line trying to guess what it was and just keep all of the metadata? Log all the things, data all the things, right? Grok. What's the first one? IP address. Yeah, super easy. What's the second one? Nope. Nope. Harder than that. Nope. It's kind of hard to figure out what it is, isn't it? Closer. No, not Windows. It's actually common log. It's Apache common log. That's a real pain to read, isn't it? Could you imagine changing your common log with one thing and then having to, tweak that? How many people do that with other systems? Yeah. Wouldn't it be awesome if you could use human readable things? Grok. Enter the groks. Grok is just regex, but instead of having regex, you're actually tagging it with human readable formats. So IP or host, and we're going to name it client IP. Now, if you want to change something in your common log, you make that change in your Apache hosts, make a new pattern, and away you go. And it's not hard to figure out, right? Heck of a lot easier. Try doing all those regexes for every single device on your network versus doing Grok. Because if it's an IP or host, you don't have to redefine what that is every time. Define it once, reuse it. It's kind of beautiful, isn't it? Checkpoint. Kibana. So I don't really go into Elasticsearch because it's just really a storage mechanism, and from a logging perspective or something like that, it's not a whole huge deal. Although, one thing I will say is that with Elasticsearch, a lot of databases, so on and so forth, you have to extend it vertically, so you have to add more RAM. You have to add more disk. You have to add more CPUs. The nice thing about Elasticsearch is that you don't have to only scale vertically, you can scale horizontally. Previous gig, I had from bare metal to joining the Elasticsearch cluster in 15 minutes. So you need more space, 15 minutes, slap a server in, your way you go. This is, and I'm not going to blame the monitor, I'm going to blame all your eyes. You all need glasses. This is Kibana. This is Chicago's Chicago crimes for the past 14 years. So what we did is we pulled all the Chicago data sets, and this is what Kibana can show you. This is Kibana 3, so Kibana 4 is in beta, and I'll get to that in a second. This is visualizing all the crimes in Chicago for the past 14 years. And you can't see anything on that. Wow! And this is Kibana 4. It's a lot more sexier, I think, personally. Yeah? Thanks. All right, it gets sexier, I promise that. I wanted to show this slide, and you can't really see it, but this here, this is cool, I love this. This here, everybody hates, who hates pie charts? Nobody. Oh, a couple people hate pie charts. Yeah, I'm not surprised. This is more than just a pie chart. If you look at it later, there's two halves here. That's male and female. And what they did is that throughout the rest, the second ring, it takes the next subset of the data set and adds that. So you'll see that on both sides, it's the same colors. And then the third ring out, it's now only two colors because that's the next subset. So now what you're seeing is that when you get further down, you're seeing the subset of a subset of a subset. Personally, I think that's pretty meaningful when you start looking at things, right? Of course, you can do the mapping. If anybody's seen the old map, we'll show you the old map because I've got a demo. This is a lot better than the previous demo, or the previous mapping, but it gets even sexier. How about heat maps? That's pretty nice. So there's still some things to do that I want to personally do, and I'm looking forward to seeing it in projects either from the community or from the organization. Who knows of the SIF framework? Intelligence framework, so you get all this reputational data from lots of different places, dump it into a database. By the way, SIF version 2 is based off of Elasticsearch. So again, this goes back to adding the metadata. So now you can go ahead and query all of this beautiful reputational metadata right from all open source intelligence feeds. LDAP, I'm pretty sure most of you probably run in a Windows world. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to get the LDAP information about a user as the event goes through? And reporting an event correlation. Those are kind of important for us as well. Let's do a quick demo time. There's my mouse. All right. Can we see that? Not really, huh? Okay, so last night before I went to bed, wow, that is terrible to look at. All right, so it's okay. We'll try and make do. So last night I went out to one of my servers on the internet and pulled the secure log and the message log, and wrote a really quick about a couple lines just to kind of give you an idea of how this can work. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on it because I didn't want to, get too excited and go, hey, look at this, look at this, look at this. So I really only kind of keyed in on SSH, right? You have an internet on the server, you have a server on the internet. If you work from home, you probably don't have a static IP address, so you've probably got, SSH open to the world, right? So what I'm trying to do here is visualize over the last, whatever the log was, in this particular case, close to about 7 days worth of logs, and then we're going to dive in to see what happened with the failed logins. So this particular place, what you can see, as you would expect, you can zoom in, kind of get the idea of what it is, and then down below, if you could see it, again, I blame all your eyes, you've got particular details about the event that happened. If we go ahead and kick up over here, I've got the next in down. There's all the failed logins, and you can see how fast it was. That's 7 days worth of data on my laptop in a virtual machine. So it's designed to be fast. So Elasticsearch is a search engine. If you're doing major search things with thousands and thousands of documents, that's what it's geared for. Therefore, it's got to be fast. So if you take that same, extrapolate that into logs, it becomes super fast for logs as well. If we go in, we can dive into this. And we can see, for example, that I've gone ahead and parsed out the failed passwords for X. Again, this is all using Grok. And that one. And you can kind of get a feel for what it is. Now, so think about adding all the metadata to that particular event. So you've got an IP address, you're doing CIF, you're doing whois, you're doing all this kind of stuff, all in one single view that you can query at any given time. Then let's take out the IP address. Let's say we want to see everything for the IP addresses. Now, some of you might have recognized this, but there's, and you can't, well, you can kind of see it, just as you would expect. I can talk louder than that. Is that better? All right, sorry. So just by clicking on the field names on the side, it pulls out that drop down of the last X number, in this particular case, 10 of that particular field, and then categorize it by the number of events for that particular thing, just like other kind of solutions that do this, right? And then, of course, I can go ahead and click on it and really dive into that to see what happened. Now, this particular server, it will block you after 5 attempts, failed attempts. So I'm ever really going to see a handful of attempts from a particular IP address, and they'll have to, move on. We go ahead and, of course, add the GeoIP functions to it. So over here, you can't see it, but here is a particular timestamp. We have the user that was attempted to be logged in as. We have the source IP address. And then we can go ahead and add additional information such as the city name and country name. And as you would expect, there's a lot of ABD. A cute little map, as you would hope to see, so you can see what's going on. And you can see that there's a couple of things over here in North and Central America. We've got some things in Europe, Asia, and then just a couple in the APAC area. You can't really see that. Color represents more. We'll just leave it at that. That way you can kind of guess. And of course, if we go ahead and click in, we can zoom into those particular things, just as you would expect with any GeoIP. And I don't know if I have good internet to pull down the tile maps. So that pretty much wraps up the demo. I'm going to say that we have a user conference coming up. And because everybody else did it, I had to add this slide. And if you want to find me, that's how to find me. Anything I can answer? And you'll notice I'm on time. Yes? So the question was, is there a release date for Kibana 4? Beta 3? You're going to hate me. Soon? Yeah, it's. I don't have an exact date, but I know that they're putting the polish on it right now. Any other questions? Fantastic. Thanks for coming out.